Good morning. This is Tony Abatini from Beyond the Ball. Can't tell you how happy I am to be back on campus in Chester, New York. Spent the last 10 days, which is the theme of the podcast this morning, traveling to Louisiana, California, Tampa, and Orlando, visiting college programs, baseball and softball, and high-level baseball academies, talking about the stuff that matters. And the theme today is simple, relates also to athletes, but more so human beings, as I call it, all the people that are not playing high-level competitive sports, but still deal with, and the three buckets today: confidence, this whole failure, perfectionism dilemma we all face, and overthinking. And what's interesting, in all the visits with players and even the coaches, I always start with the same question. How much of performance, and again, if you're not playing high-level college or professional sports, think of it differently. How often are you spending time on the performance piece of things, mental performance, right? And I know with athletes, they spend 3, 4, 5 hours a day working on their swing. They're in the weight rooms, strength and conditioning and whatnot. And so I asked the question to the athletes really to get them to realize if the mental part of the game, and we can define the mental part of the game, emotional regulation, nervousness, inability to compete, white line fever, competitive anxiety, lack of mental toughness, all the words and cliches that are out there. If that's the basis of your performance setbacks, well, how much time should you be spending on it? And unanimously, all the athletes always say the same thing. Well, 80 to 90% of my struggles, my slumps, can't hit a curveball, can't throw strikes, are more a function of the mental part of the game. So then the next question I pose to them in the group is, well, if it's 80 to 90% of your problems, how much time are you spending in your training or during your downtime on this part? And they all put their heads down. And it's interesting for them to realize that the proportion of time that they're spending on the most important part of the game is dreadfully disproportionate, not even close. And so it's a reminder to players and even to ourselves, if we're looking to get better at this invisible part of the game, if a different lifestyle or different performance, then we've got to start allocating a little bit more time for that. And I want to just take the three biggest issues that we'll talk about. And I know we actually have a mental skills workshop tonight that we're going to be going live on Facebook. And it's really just addressing three categories: confidence, failure, and overthinking. And if you think about just simply the confidence, how much better would we be as an athlete, as a player, as a career person, if we had more confidence? And where does confidence come from? And as a starting point, I think we need to just simply define how we get more confident. We can continue to preach and tell players to just be more confident, but a lot of it gets back to really the formula of learning how to plan, prepare, and re-execute. And I'll say that again. If you're trying to improve the confidence level of an athlete or yourself, it's directly related to how much time you've invested in planning for the event, the performance, the activity. Was your preparation real? Was it genuine? Was it constantly upgraded to an extent? And were you able to at least execute it when you weren't on the main stage or when you were simply in practice? And it's amazing, and it's no different whether you're taking a test, preparing for public speaking. If you plan a little more, take the time, if your preparation is better, your ability to execute it when you're practicing and invariably come game time or when it's time to do it live becomes much better. And so I don't know if there's any secret formula on getting players more confident. The better players have more confidence. It's kind of a catch-22. Well, why are they better? I think they're better because They've been more disciplined in their time. They've taken the time to better plan and prepare and execute. And so that formula, as simple as it sounds, is completely complex to an extent, because we see athletes all the time lose confidence, more so at the younger level or even at the amateur level. And when you start nosediving back into it, you'll ask them, well, how good did you prepare? Or their preparation was, I call it, in a vacuum. They worked on things that they were really good at. And as we know, with athletes and professionals, spending more time working on your weaknesses is probably the best formula for getting better, instead of spending time, and we all have a tendency of doing that. We spend so much time on the things that we like and we're really good at, and for that reason, our weaknesses continue. So the plan, prepare, and execute. You want to get a little league or a high school or a college player better and have more confidence. Let them review what exactly their practice time is, the plan. How good are they preparing? Are they really into it? Are they committing themselves to do it? And how often are they over and over again, repeating the mundane? I think that's crucial. Practice is boring, practice is hard, but the repetition component will allow, I believe, not only the physical repetition, the muscle memory, so to speak, but the mind's ability to say, been there, done that before, that I can sit on this stage now or in the batter's box or on the pitcher's mound and be totally committed and have that confidence because of the work that was put in before. So I think it's important when talking to players or players that are out there, if you want more confidence, you're going to have to find more time, and that gets back to our friend 1440. That's how many minutes in a day we all have. And the ability to carve out more time for better planning, to have more meaningful practice, to be able to execute the planning and the practice when it's before the game actually starts, I think is going to be a key also. The second component I want to talk about is this whole thing of failure and defining failure with athletes, and putting things into perspective. And this gets back to whether it's good parenting or good coaching, and really making sure that they understand that, particularly in baseball and softball, where the percentage of not getting a hit is greater than getting a hit, if they stuck to their plan, if they were prepared, and for some reason they had, quote, a failure, they've got to look at failure as a temporary setback. And failure really with athletes is the ultimate feedback for what happened and how do I get better. So as crazy as it sounds, you want those young players or yourself to, hey, bring it on. I want to fail again, and then I'm going to, with honesty and objectivity, find out what happened. Looking at failure that way becomes a learning lesson more than simply a personal indictment as to the results. And again, that's not anything new, but I think players themselves need to be reminded of what exactly they're perceiving to be as far as failure, and the coach or the performance coach or the parent, letting them understand that the feedback that you get, the lesson that's learned from the failure, becomes the crucial piece of that, which segues into the whole concept of perfectionism. We live in a world now where children and athletes expect to be perfect. And as the coach, as the parent, as the advisor, you need to explain to them over and over again that there is no such thing as perfection. We do this cute analogy every time I talk to players about, hey, maybe there's somebody who's perfect in the group. And I challenge them to go home that night, put 3 inches of water in the bathtub, take their left sock off, put their foot in the bathtub, and find out if they actually, if their foot hits the bottom of the bathtub, well, they're not perfect. But for some reason, if their foot never touches the bottom of the bathtub and they can walk on water, then they are perfect. And then they can beat themselves up over and over again. But if they do happen to have their foot hit the bottom of the bathtub, welcome to the human race. There hasn't been too many people in this world that can walk on water. We certainly know one of them. And it's really a fun, cute reminder that this imperfection that is so us as human beings is a good thing. And it's an expectation that we many times will drive ourselves crazy thinking that we have to be perfect in our lives, in our relationships, in our performance, and knowing that good enough sometimes is better than beating ourselves up. I think the other component is overthinking. Tony, how do you get players just not to think? Well, newsflash, we're always going to be thinking. The brain is constantly, right, to the tune of thousands per day of thoughts that come in. And the best advice that I can provide is let the thoughts just simply pass. Like you're outside with clouds passing outside in the air. Just let them pass away. And we get in trouble when we choose the thoughts. The thoughts then become us that we were trying to control. These thoughts become feelings, and the feelings become emotions, and then all of a sudden now we find ourselves in a sad, angry, frustrated, or nervous situation. So the overthinking, let that initial thought of I can't do it just simply pass away. Let it go. Just simply like a cloud, and I love the cloud analogy, it just passes. Be quiet for a few seconds if you have to, and let it pass. But to grab it and try to deny it or tell athletes, you know what, just simply don't think, it's just unrealistic. And I think it's important, even in our daily lives off the field, when we have a tendency to overthink, let the thought that you don't want, thought X, I'm going to get hit by a car, I'm going to be dead soon, I'm going to be in bankruptcy, I'm going to lose my job. Just simply let that thought pass, because the more we grapple with it, the more we try to confront it, the more we try to deny it, it becomes even further a reality to an extent in our mind's eye. So the overthinking, I think when you talk to players, it's okay to think about the slump. It's okay to think about I'm going to get cut from the team. And again, just simply let it go. And whether it's taking a deep breath, we call it our deep exaggerated breath, whether it's looking in some good open space, the concept of open focus, but just simply let the thought pass and don't give it any more credibility by trying to deal with it aggressively. Those are the three components, and as I said before, as humans and athletes, we all have these flaws, right? We sometimes lose confidence. We sometimes forget about the fact that we're not perfect. We sometimes look at failure the wrong way and simply embrace it many times. And certainly the overthinking becomes rampant for all of us. And I'll remind our viewers about the time zone. We get in trouble when we're overthinking, when we forget that the perfect time zone to play in, to live in, is right here, right now. And as I call it, the three evil sisters of self-doubt, worry, and fear. And I'll tell the athletes, what time zone does worry live in? Well, the reason why worrying gets us in trouble is that we've decided to fast forward into the future and come up with all these different scenarios as to what if. The three evil sister of self-doubt is really a manifestation of the past. We didn't do something right a week ago. Our last at-bat wasn't very good, and so we're now taking that past event and making it part of the right here, right now. So many times with the overthinking, it's really just a question of reminding the athlete or yourself, I'm not going to fast forward the what-ifs. We all know that probably the majority of the stuff that we worry about and think about in life never happens. And we get so caught up on digging up the past as a way of thinking that it's going to, at some point, reflect and affect our right here, right now, the present. So let's remind both ourselves and the athletes that we're around that these flaws, and we all have them because we're not perfect unless you can walk on water, are things that we at least have to acknowledge. Awareness is the key to so many components when you're talking about the mental part of the game. You can't fix or address these imperfections without raising your hand and saying, hey, you know what? I do at times have a confidence issue. I sometimes have not really understanding and start making failure personally. I'm overthinking all the time because I keep switching time zones. The more you talk about it with players and athletes, the better it is. This is Tony Abatini from Beyond the Ball. We hope to see you soon on campus. If you're coming to the Mental Skills Workshop tonight, great. Be open-minded, bring a pen and pencil, and we'll continue to talk about the invisible part of the game. You can reach us at frozenropes.com or tonyabatini.com. And for now, until we chat again, this is Beyond the Ball, Tony Abatini. Make sure you have a great day and stay in really good, open, present space.